Hi, this is Mrs. Doobie, and these are the 10 comma rules. Rule number 1 is to use a comma to set off introductory words, phrases, or clauses. So we have examples for words, phrases, and clauses. Purring, comma, the kitten curled up in my lap. That is an introductory word. Same as suddenly, the girl sneezed. Phrases are a little longer. One example would be prep phrases. During the winter, the building is cold. That's a single prep phrase, during the winter. But this one really doesn't need a comma because the meaning is clear without it. But the other one does. During the winter, snow falls constantly. That sounds a little confusing without the pause after winter. So we would need to put a comma in. So in other words, the comma after the first prep phrase is most of the time needed. So if you were to put it here in the first one, it wouldn't be incorrect. It's just that it's not really necessary. For two prep phrases, though, it would be necessary. This is the final example. During the final 3 minutes of the game, the fans began to cheer wildly. This is a double prep phrase. During the final 3 minutes, and then of the game. So we'll take our comma and put it after game. A clause is a group of words that has a subject and a verb. In this case, you want to put commas after dependent clauses that start the sentence. Although I like country music, comma, I did not want to hear the entire CD. Next rule is to use a comma to separate compound adjectives. That means there's more than one adjective that describes the noun, and they come before the noun. For this rule, you can use the and test, which means you put the word and in for a comma that you're trying to use. If it makes sense, you're good to go and you can use the comma. Pepper is a good and obedient and gentle dog. The last one wouldn't fit because I can't say Pepper is a good and obedient and gentle and dog. So these two commas are the only ones that would fit. John grew up in a small white farmhouse. John grew up in a small and white farmhouse. Farmhouse is one term, so you wouldn't want to put a comma before that because it wouldn't make sense. John grew up in a small and white and farmhouse? No. John grew up in a small white farmhouse. Last one, I like to read in our bright, cozy family room. I like to read in our bright and cozy family room. Same with farmhouse. Family room is one term. So only one comma between bright and cozy would make sense. Rule number 3 is to use a comma to separate a series of at least 3 words or phrases. In this one, we have 4 words in a series. A chair, a table, a lamp, and a sofa were the room's only furnishings. Notice that you do put the comma before the last item, before the and. Bob, comma, Joe, comma, and Tim are ready for practice. And lastly, my favorite breakfast is toast, eggs and bacon, and orange juice. If you were to put a comma after eggs, that wouldn't work because eggs and bacon act as one term, like peanut butter and jelly. So you wouldn't want to separate the peanut butter from the jelly, so you don't want to separate the eggs from the bacon. Rule number 4, use a comma followed by a coordinating conjunction, a fanboy, to make a compound sentence. Pay close attention to this one, people. I am not going to the concert for I am too busy. The comma is going to separate the two independent clauses. I am not going to the concert. This is a coordinating conjunction for, and then I am too busy is another independent clause. Now I want to test that I sure indeed have an independent clause on each side. So here I have I as the subject, am as a helping verb, and going as the main verb. On the other side, I have I am too busy. I is the subject, and am is a linking verb. So this works, this works nicely. I want you to pause the video and try the other two. I want you to figure out where to put the comma and then where the subject and the verb is on each side of the comma. Here are the answers. This one would be prospectors looked, comma, but others found. And the other one would be Linda wanted her own guitar, comma, so she started saving all her money. Who wanted? Linda. What's being said about Linda? She wanted. And who started saving money? She did. What's being said about she? She started. All of these are perfect compound sentences because there's an independent clause on each side, joined by a comma and a conjunction. Don't misuse the precious comma. I want you to pause the video and try to figure out why each of these are wrong. Okay, John Wayne worked in Hollywood for 50 years. He made more than 175 films. You have a subject and a verb on each side of the comma, and you just learned that this comma would need a conjunction. So something probably like and, a comma and, he made more than 75 films would work. The second one is wrong because this comma shouldn't be there. There's two subjects and one verb, which means it's still only one independent clause. Same with this one, but there's one subject and two verbs, so that comma shouldn't be joining these because there's one independent clause, not two. Rule number 5, use a comma to set off non-essential information in the sentence. I'm going to do a couple of these. Number 1, she watched puzzled as the man in the yellow car drove away. Puzzled is extra word that you do not need in this sentence, and so you can take it out. A customer, complaining loudly, stepped up to the counter. Now the tricky part comes in with ones like this last one, my best friend Sarah just got married. In this case, Sarah is unessential information if I'm assuming that you know that I have one best friend, right? Because there's only one person that it could be, Sarah. So in that case, the commas can go there because Sarah is really an unessential addition. But if you have something where it says, my friend Sarah just got married, you would need the Sarah in there because she is one of many friends. And so her name in that case is essential to the meaning of the sentence. Number 6, use commas in dates. So you would put it in between the number, the day, and the year. In the second sentence, you wouldn't need one at all because you cannot put a comma between a month and a year, just between the day and the year. Use commas in greetings, in friendly letters, and then in closings in all letters. In this bottom example, this is a professional letter. Dear Professor Thomas. So I want to use a colon, not a comma. It's just the rule. And then I would still continue to use a comma, though, in my closing. Number 8, use commas between cities and states, not states and zip codes. Westlake Village, comma, California. And if you're using it in a sentence, it's the same thing. If my sentence here were to continue, such as Disneyland is located in Anaheim, California, just north of San Diego, you would need to put a comma after California because the sentence will have continued. Use commas before direct quotations. John Steinbeck wrote, comma, quote, capital letter. And then Patricia shouted, comma, quote, capital letter. And lastly is use commas to directly address someone. If you're going to talk to somebody in your writing, you would say, well, this is a big comma, Mrs. Doobie, comma, can you please continue teaching about commas? Okay, that is all for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you understand commas a little bit more than you did when we started.